Welcome, sports fans. I'm Charles E. Smith Jr. This is NFL Football Talk, which is, of course, an inside sports production. We're going to bring you all the latest for the NFL, even though it's the offseason, but plenty of movement going on, plenty of stories. And you know how the NFL is. It's kind of just a year-round thing, so we're going to go ahead and bring you up to speed. As you know, many of you watch this all the time. I do not work alone. I do only work with the best. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and bring in my main man here from an undisclosed location, but he is safe and sound here in Southern California, none other than Chris Lardieri. Chris, what's happening?
Charles, thank you. It's great to be back after a brief hiatus. I can confirm I'm safe from the rain. We need it here, but as we Southern Californians know, driving in the rain is like driving in the snow back east. Stay off the road.
Yeah, that's true. So, you know what? It's been really breaking off here in this off season, so we might be getting a stadium here in L.A. from what I understand. And I have multiple sources who are saying football in L.A. in 2016. What do you think about that? Mr. Kroenke, of course, the owner of the Rams, he's got the lease that he's year to year there in St. Louis, so he can get out of that whenever he needs. Now he's got the land over here in Southern Cal. The city council signed off on it, so he can build. Now it's just a matter of, I don't know, what do you think? Dominoes falling into place?
I think so, and I'm a notorious skeptic on a number of things. The top of the list is an NFL team moving to LA, and I think the difference this time is Kroenke's a shrewd businessman. His proverbial ducks in a row, had a lot going on behind the scenes and kept it under wraps for a long time. I give credit for that. And then the other thing is, he's dealing with the city of Inglewood, which is not part of the city LA, which is you and I know is a never-ending, ponderous bureaucracy of sorts that bungles anything, even the downtown stadium. Still amazed the state of Staples Center got done. So he's kind of bypassing city of LA. He's not going along with Carson, which failed once before, or dealing even with the Rose Bowl. So I don't know, I'm kind of getting optimistic here, and I think the final piece of the puzzle is that if you look at the grand scheme of things with our good friend Roger Goodell, won't have to realign. The Rams moving from St. Louis to L.A. is a non-issue. They'll stay in the NFC West.
Yeah, and you know what? Here's the thing with that whole move. I don't know why the NFL is the way they are about football in L.A., but whatever. It's stuff that I don't really understand. But anyhow, when you look at the whole thing from a geographic standpoint, you look at the NFC West where everyone is, it makes more sense for the Rams to be in LA than St. Louis because you've got Arizona, you got Seattle, and you've got San Francisco there. So, hey, it just lines everything up the way it should be.
Absolutely, and you'll have teams in the same time zone and less travel. Yeah, I think and also you've got a built-in fan base. There are a lot of Rams fans here. I don't know if you saw this when they played the Chargers last season. A number of them showed up. It was a very good crowd, sizable crowd, supporting the Rams, and they've been on social media, bringing the Rams back to L.A. So there's a team that left L.A. not because of a lack of support, because of their batty owner, the late Georgia Frontieri. So, I rest my case.
Yeah, that's true. Then it's a matter of which teams are going to come here. They're talking about housing two teams here. Maybe the San Diego Chargers in a little bit of flux there. And then also there's, we also always got to talk about the Oakland Raiders and the possibility of the crack house moving back down to Southern California, too.
I like that. Yeah, and it's funny, with all this talk, and it's been a very hot-button issue to listen to San Diego sports radio about this very topic, trying to get a stadium built down there, but of course, the Raiders seem to be late to the game, a day late, $1 short. Oakland is not going to build them a new stadium. And who knows, will they end up in San Antonio? Will they be stuck there in that abyss of a stadium? I don't know. But really interesting. I'm still skeptical about the Chargers. We want to talk about another city with bureaucracy and not getting things done. If San Diego doesn't act, I could see that moving. Now, would it be Carson? Would they share the stadium in Inglewood? I don't know. But sounds like the momentum's really shifting there to call a bluff on the citizens of San Diego. But unfortunately, they're either going to have to fork out money in the form of PSLs or put something on the ballot. And we here in the state of California don't like to increase our taxes for stadiums, that's for sure.
I would love to see, just personally, to me, the Chargers belong in San Diego. Just That's all the history there that I know of them. I know they were once in L.A. anyways, but they're the San Diego Chargers going back, Lance Allworth, Dan Fouts, all those guys, and even, John Unitas for a brief time. But, excuse me, the tradition there, though, with the San Diego Chargers, I would kind of hate to see that uprooted, but you never know. And then when you look at the whole stadium thing, for downtown L.A., remember, AEG, which owns and operates Staples Center, they spent $50 million to not get a stadium in downtown L.A. So when you talk about the bureaucracy, there you got $50 million you spent trying to get a stadium in L.A., and all it becomes is basically, a $50 million write-off, and no stadium, no team, and no closer than when you started.
Finishing business great, Charles. Never ceases to amaze. And then getting back to the Chargers, I completely agree with you. I go down there a lot, and on a Sunday, everyone's into the Chargers. They support their team,
right?
Win or lose. They've only been to that one Super Bowl where they got annihilated by the Niners. But San Diego is not Green Bay. It's a big city. It continues to grow, or even a Buffalo. And I mean, to use the excuse there's no support there. I mean, the stadium's a dump. It was built in the early '60s. It's not really a place to go. When you've been to Phoenix or Seattle, like you and I have, or even the new MetLife Stadium in New Jersey. I'm not saying everyone's got to have a brand new stadium, but when you go to Qualcomm, you'll see why a lot of these new stadiums really appeal to the citizens of San Diego and or LA. I mean, I'm not going to sugarcoat it, Charles. I don't. The place is a dump. Because San Diego deserves a new stadium. How they do it, I don't know. But if the Padres can get a brand new baseball stadium, I would think they could figure out a plan for the Chargers.
I would think so. And you know what? I'll agree with you with that stadium. I have been to the stadium there in Phoenix, or actually in Glendale, Arizona, where the Arizona Cardinals play. I go to one NFL game a year, and I choose to go to Arizona as opposed to going to San Diego for just the reasons you talked about. And that is, yes, Qualcomm, or as I still call it, the MRF, is actually, it's a dump. What can you say? And I have nothing against the city of San Diego, the people of San Diego, or the Chargers. I'm just saying that stadium, as a standalone structure, it is a dump in comparison to the newer stadiums getting built.
Completely agree.
Let's go ahead and move on. A little bit of other NFL action. And, of course, the saga of Adrian Peterson continues. Adrian Peterson recently met with Roger Goodell, the NFL commissioner. So, Peterson cannot be reinstated any sooner than April 15th. Now you've got the whole thing of the NFL suspending him, and then Howard Henderson upholding it, and then you have the circuit court judge, David Doty, I believe his name is. He overturns that, sides with Peterson when Peterson files a suit. The NFL is still digging their heels in, and I guess here's one of those caveats I don't quite understand. They're looking for Peterson to show enough remorse. Now, what do you have to do? We grieve in different ways. We all handle stress in different ways. How can you tell if someone is actually, when you talk about something subjective, how in the world would you talk about something like that where he's accused of, over-disciplining his son, let's call it that? How can you call him into the office, talk to him, and then say you weren't remorseful? How do you exactly judge that?
I have no idea. Completely subjective, and the NFL never ceases to amaze. And while we're at the subject of remorse, what about Greg Hardy, a guy who allegedly did or didn't pay off his girlfriend and not testify against him, thus skirting the NFL rules about being convicted of domestic violence / assault? Did he show any remorse? Did Ray Rice show any remorse when he only got a slap on the wrist with his initial suspension? I don't get it. I think the guy's suffered enough. He did his time. I don't agree in hitting your young son with a switch / stick or whatever the case may be, but this is one guy who clearly served his time and wasn't out there in the media chirping about it or making excuses. So I really don't know. I think he will be reinstated. Doty's been a long-time nemesis of the NFL, and I think it's ironic that he's also siding with Peterson in complicated matters here.
Well, and the other thing is with Peterson, we look at Peterson versus the NFL, you would think at a certain point, and we know the new conduct policy went in went into place later in the season. Should he be punished under the old or the new? And the NFL is also saying that, he hasn't been punished because he was on the commissioner's exempt list, so he's still getting paid, even though he wasn't able to play. But he did miss actually 3 game checks before he was put on the commissioner's exempt list. So do you let him off with time served or what? And when I look at the whole thing of the NFL doing this, Peterson filing suit, the judges siding with Peterson, the NFL still failing to yield. At a certain point, don't you just throw in the towel if you're the NFL and just say, been through enough, you're one of the star players. I think Peterson, he's gotten the message. If any message is to be got, he has it now. So shouldn't the NFL just go ahead and say, hey, you know what, we're done?
You would think so, but yet again, Charles, we're dealing with Roger Goodell and the other powers that be, the same league that basically said Dez Bryant's catch was a catch, but we're not going to change the rule. A lot of head scratching going on here, Charles. I'm not about to figure it out. I don't know if it's stubbornness. Recently, Roger Goodell did an interview with Peter King, and he categorically and defiantly said at no time did he think of resigning. So, I mean, we're not dealing with the most diplomatic person, to say the least.
Right, and the other thing is we look at the Dallas Cowboys. They're always at the forefront because, especially since they made the playoffs finally. But they signed Greg Hardy, who we're talking about, and also, I think when it comes down to it, I still think that Jerry Jones, he's got his eyes on Adrian Peterson, and as unlikely as it seems, I think if there's anything that can be done to get Peterson to Dallas, like when they talk about the money that Minnesota may owe Peterson or whatever, I think that Jones, with the deep pockets he's got, the ego he has, and the way that big star-studded team, they're always in the forefront, he's going to do whatever it takes. And I see Peterson playing in Dallas, even though they say it's a long shot at this point, but I still think that's what's going to happen there.
Yeah, I agree with you. And I mean, Darren McFadden's not the
right.
He's a nice backup or a complement to a starting back, but all signs point to that. And let's face it, Jerry Jones is clearly on some sort of mission to bring in reclamation products, to give guys a second chance, be some sort of, philanthropist or God knows what. But clearly that's a theme this offseason. I mean, I guess you could lump Jason Garrett getting a new contract in there as well, because the old Jerry Jones would have probably let him go for not winning that playoff game and brought back Barry Switzer, whoever, Howard Schnellenberger, if he's still alive. But yeah, so I can easily see it. It's from Texas. The rumblings have been around too long.
So we'll see about that. And I always thought, because of the way that they just kind of let DeMarco Murray walk, and Murray walked with really very little fanfare. When you talk about no remorse, there was no remorse there from Jones or the Cowboys or organization or anything. And they pick up Darren McFadden like, oh yeah, he's a likely, we'll just plug him in just like we did DeMarco Murray and everything will be fine. Jones has got something up his sleeve there.
Absolutely. I mean, I couldn't even tell you the last time McFadden played a full season, if at all. And when Raider fans are happy to see him go, that doesn't bode well for your new team. So yeah, I think something's up. The whole Murray thing, I don't know if the Cowboys are playing along with it because they knew we were going to leave and just try and fit up his price. He was going to go to a rival like the Eagles. So that was an interesting game of chicken. I thought they'd keep Murray. Clearly, they need to save their cap room for Dez Bryant. He got franchised this year, and they have to pay him at some point. But I think ultimately their logic is that we've got this great offensive line and anyone can run behind it. Well, that remains to be seen.
Well, anyone... I think they're about to learn about something the hard way, and you'd think that Jones would have learned from his whole his battles with Emmitt Smith back in the day. But, I want to talk about those offenses, and when you talk about Dez Bryant, it kind of leads into it. I did a little bit of research, believe it or not, and I was looking at the league going pass happy, but I don't think we understand just to what degree it is. So I went back 30 years to see the progression of the league, and it's not going to take that long. But anyways, in 1984, the 84 season, there were 30 players in the league who had 60 or more catches. In 1994, there were 32 players who had 60 or more catches. In 2004, there were 36 players who had 60 or more catches. Last year, that's 10 years after that, there were 57 players who had 60 or more catches in the league. So when you wonder about, the guys like Greg Jennings not being able to find a team, and they talk about the devalued running back, but when you look at it, we got now each team on average has 2 players who can catch 60 balls a year. So what's the value really of wide receivers when it's going forward? Because it may be a pass-happy league, but you basically have all these receivers you can just plug in, and they get you 60 catches a year, which that's a good threshold.
Great work on your part. I'm going to have to start calling you Moneyball Smith, Charles. That's analytics I like. Those are analytics I like. That really is a telling trend. I mean, if you look at someone like Julian Edelman, who I think is an excellent receiver, but a couple of years ago, I think he was thought of more as a third receiver, former college quarterback who really was in the shadows of Wes Welker when he was with the Patriots.
Mm-hmm.
And now look, and he's a guy catching close to, I don't even know, he's probably close to 90, 100 catches a year.
Yeah.
So, definitely a change of the times. And when you look at a lot of those bubble screen and short passes, that's become the new running back. So it's a high percentage completion. It's a way to run the clock down and keep the defense on the field.
Yeah, and the other part is that when we look at that, I mean, so many guys getting so many catches, so nothing is guaranteed. There was a time when you came off a season where you had gotten 60, 65, 70 catches, you could pretty much name your price when you were a free agent. Now we look at this offseason, though, how Crabtree just kind of sat out there with nothing. Greg Jennings right now is still unsigned. So it's just, if you caught 60 passes and they say, okay, you're one of 50-plus guys who did this, why should we take you instead of any one of these other guys? I mean, the bargaining power of wide receivers? It's going to get pretty interesting here pretty soon.
Yeah, definitely. And even if you look at the mock drafts that are out there right now, I mean, there are 2 clear top wide receiver prospects, and after that, wide open, you'll see a lot of guys fall into the latter rounds. I mean, it's just really, really interesting that the trend in the NFL now. That said, I do think it's important to have a running back. You can't have a running back by committee. I mean, for salary cap purposes, it's not smart to tie up a lot of your money in just one running back, given that they're so fragile. But, I mean, you need a guy you can pound the ball with. Let's face it, the Seahawks probably should have won back-to-back Super Bowls with these two. Right there, I point to that. You even look at LeGarrette Blount, who just got suspended, ironically, coming off the scrap heap, becoming a workhorse for the Patriots. Is he the elite back? No, but clearly they had a go-to guy to control the clock and get him the yardage, especially down in the red zone.
Well, LeGarrette Blount is not an elite running back, but he's one of those guys. I mean, kind of like he's never going to get a sniff of the Hall of Fame or anything like that. But LeGarrette Blount is pretty solid, and I don't just mean because he's 260 pounds, but he is a solid guy. And I'm going to say this: the Patriots do not get to that Super Bowl without LeGarrette Blount in the backfield. That changed their whole season around when they picked him up.
Completely agree, and it's a great life lesson for those of you with kids out there. Quit on your employer, just walk out the door, and there's always a Bill Belichick to hire you and get you a Super Bowl ring. Right, Charles?
Well, if you can average 4 yards a carry, that's true. But otherwise, I'd suggest you go ahead and keep your present job and, don't book that flight to New England because you ain't going to make it. But, hey, and then when I look at that, we talk about the devalued running back. However, no team really wins a Super Bowl without a solid running game. Yet they don't really value that. They all go after wide receivers. And speaking of which, how about Jimmy Graham? Jimmy Graham in Seattle this year. Finally, Seattle's going to have a big threat. And I know we're not doing a preview show or anything like that, but you got to like Seattle's chances, though, going forward, maybe going to a third Super Bowl in a row.
Have that elite receiver once Harvin got traded to the Jets and have that burner, but that's really an open field for them now with a threat over the middle. I mean, let's face it, the NFL arbitrator had to figure out whether Jimmy Graham just last year was to be considered a wide receiver or a tight end. So he's as far as I'm concerned, he's a glorified receiver. So I know Russell Wilson will be happy.
Yeah, and and when speaking of that, I think Jimmy Graham leaving New Orleans, I think New Orleans is in for a lot tougher times than people think here going forward because it's the way they played last year, and I know it was just considered just a little bit of a down year, but I think Drew Brees, something's come off of that. He's not quite what he was before. He's not a big guy, and I think everybody's looking at San Francisco and what they lost and them going into the tank this year, but don't be surprised if New Orleans winds up being, a 5-11, 6-10 team again this year.
Yeah, I could easily see that. Breeze is a year older. Looks like there's a little rust on him. Got a huge salary cap number, so there's even been rumblings about the Saints wanting to dump him. Yeah, I really think that's a team on the downturn right there. They're just trading guys like Graham just because they're going to be in cap hell next year.
That's true. And then let's go ahead and talk about a little bit about my Miami Dolphins, of course. So they get rid of the contract of Mike Wallace right after they bring in DeMarco Murray, who I like that signing, and I know I don't like a lot of his antics on the field, but to me, DeMarco Murray is one of those guys who he is the difference between an 8-8 season and a 10-6 or 11-5 season. That's what I see him doing there for the Dolphins. So I think he is one of those guys who can get them over that hump.
Yeah, I mean, he's the best defensive tackle in the league. The question is, do you pay him like a J.J. Watt, like the Dolphins did, and really eat up that much cap space? And look at what happened 2 years after making a previous big splash free agency. They deal Mike Wallace off to the Vikings for nothing, really. So I think it'll pay dividends immediately, but it's like anything with these deals in the NFL, a couple of years down the road, what does it mean? So I definitely think it changes the balance of power in the AFC East in the sense that the Dolphins have a formidable defense now. I mean, they played the Patriots tough last year. Question is, can they get the offense rolling?
That's true. And then you look at the offense. Hey, how about what the Buffalo Bills are doing there,
I'm impressed with their moves. I really, and we could probably do a whole show on Chip Kelly. I don't know what the heck he did. I think he thinks he's outsmarting everyone, like channeling his inner Belichick. But he kind of saved face by getting Murray, but they let Shady McCoy go for next to nothing. I think that's a good trade for the Bills right there to give up a linebacker. That said, who's their quarterback? And Rex Ryan knows nothing about offense, so I hope he keeps his hands off that side of the ball.
So it's, like we say, football kind of being a year-round thing. Here it is. We're doing a show in, what are we in, March, April right now. But there's not going to be any football for months, and I'm already kind of chomping at the bit for the season to start, and we still got to go through the draft at the end of the month, too. So we'll have no doubt be some big dealings going on. And you were talking to me when we were doing pre-production here, rumors involving Phillip Rivers a little bit. Is that correct?
Yes, it is. I was just reading it prior to getting on the air with you, and been rumblings coming out of San Diego, and now the national media's picked up on it. Tim Wisman, who used to coach him as an offensive coordinator with the Chargers prior to him getting the head coaching job with the Titans, supposedly wants to deal the second overall pick to San Diego for Rivers. And you say, why would they do that? Well, Phillip Rivers' contract is up in 2016. If you connect the dots and tie it in with our conspiracies in L.A. talk, there's some thought that Rivers does not want to move to L.A. From the South, went to school at North Carolina State. Tennessee's a lot closer to home.
Yeah.
And on top of that, does that also mean the Chargers are moving to L.A., and this is a smoke signal? I'm not sure. The Chargers seem to be denying it, saying they're happy with Rivers, but something to think about. Maybe Mike McCoy does like Mariota. They bring in a quarterback just to man the ship for a year and let Mariota develop. Not sure, but I could see Mariota falling. I mean, the prevailing wisdom is that if the Titans sit there, they're going to take Leonard Williams from SC, the highly regarded defensive tackle, and he could fall to 5 or 6, Mariota, to the Redskins and Jets. So I mean, there's going to be a trade somewhere, because I don't see the Redskins being able to get out from under the mess that is Robert Griffin III. The Jets, I just don't see picking Mariota. in my gut instinct, I think they're going to go with what they have, Ryan Fitzpatrick or Geno Smith, and try and do some ball control and let the defense win. But regardless, this rumor just will not go away, and that's why I've got my radar on it, Charles. I'm keeping track of it for you.
All right, and I really do appreciate that. And when we do finally have football here in Southern Cal, well, in the LA area, don't want to diss any of the San Diego folks because I kind of forget they're down there, just because it's kind of tacked on to the end of. It's like an unincorporated area of California there. Hey, it really is. When is anyone ever passing through San Diego? Just tell me the last time you passed through San Diego. No, doesn't happen.
Good point. Yeah, it's like you're leaving the OC on your way to Tijuana and you just pass through San Diego.
Right, and other than that, doesn't really happen.
Yeah, and then you got to stop and you got to catch a game at the colossal dump known as Qualcomm. I mean, it's just something you need to do. There's so much that's there in San Diego. It's got to be at the top of your list, right?
I did my time at Qualcomm. Although I think, from what I understand, I believe the Dolphins are playing there this year. So someone might talk me in. I've gotten a few offers to go down there, so I might get talked into watching one final game there at Qualcomm before everything, the 2016 drama takes place.
And don't shed a tear if you do, Charles.
About time to wrap up. You have some final words there for us, Mr. Lardieri?
Yeah, I'm a baseball fan. I'm happy opening day is here. Look forward to going out to the ballpark a few times this year, hopefully. But we're one day in, and we're already doing an NFL show, and I think that speaks volumes about the power of the NFL. Like you said, it's a year-round sport. I'll give them, I think, June for the most part. They go dark in advance of training camps. There's not much buzz going on, but it's at least 11 months out of the year. Or it gets great ratings for a scouting combine, which is essentially a bunch of 40-yard dashes, weightlifting, etc.
Right.
And got all the free agency right after that, which turns into just a 2-week extravaganza, especially the first few days of signings and trades. And this year was especially great with Chip Kelly doing his best buddy professor move down there in Philly. And now you look heading into the draft, got all sorts of rumors of trades, which quarterback's going to go where. It's just amazing to me how popular the NFL is. Despite Roger Goodell's best efforts to mess everything up and ruin the proverbial golden egg, as the sport gets more and more popular. And this is just proof of it. We're going to have the draft in Chicago for the first time at the end of the month. I expect ratings there to be through the roof. And, I'll be watching. You'll be watching. We'll have plenty to talk about. Long story short, I think reports of the NFL's demise are greatly exaggerated. Wouldn't you say?
Yeah, well, yes and no, and that's again something you can do a whole show on. But I think that the NFL is going to reach a critical mass point, a true critical mass point, and something has to happen. When you look at the sport, you look at concussions, you look at all the stuff that's going on. I think they're getting a little bit too big, and that's when empires crumble. That's just the way it goes. So I love football, as you know. I love football going all the way back into the 70s. I'm old school, so I know about the 60s players. But the sport I grew up with, the sport I love, the sport I watch on Sundays. So, hey, you know what? For as long as it's grand, as long as it lasts, I'm going to be there. And Mr. Lardieri, I know you're going to be there too.
Absolutely, and don't get me wrong. I'm not putting my rose-colored glasses on by any means. They have issues. But you look at it, I don't know if it's a function of that the NFL is necessarily so well run or marketed, but you look at the alternatives. I mean, you want to watch a baseball game for 3.5 hours in April and sit in the freezing cold. NASCAR, which everyone thought was going to supplant the NFL or at least challenge it, is completely nosedived. NBA games have now turned into Olympic ice skating, where the referees control everything and it's subjective. You even look at the Final Four, which there's some great games, but even still, controversial refereeing and calls and so forth. I think at the end of the day, the NFL is just the most popular reality show in America, and there are plenty of eyeball televisions in this country.
I'd say this. I mean, it translates to TV. I love NHL hockey, but the way that NFL translates to television it's almost like a video game. That's the thing. That's why it works so well. TV, NFL Network, or Red Zone Channel. Red Zone Channel, you couldn't really have the equivalent of that with any other sport because of the way that NFL is structured. It's perfect for that. Then you throw in fantasy football, you throw in all the illicit gambling, and really that's why it's the most popular sport in the U.S. Let me just ask you this. I'll just throw this out there. If you had to place one bet on one sport for one game, I know you would choose a football game if you absolutely had to. It wouldn't be NHL, it wouldn't be NBA, it wouldn't be Major League Baseball, it wouldn't be college basketball, it wouldn't be college anything. It'd be NFL football. That's what you would bet on.
Completely agree, although having been burned in the past in Vegas on NFL games, I might actually bet a college game if I really knew my alma mater Rutgers is going to get the crap kicked out of it maybe. But yeah, I agree with you. It's football, and it's more interesting. It's more analyzed. There's more data points out there. There are no injury reports for baseball games on a daily basis. So yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, so there you go. And you know what? And I think with the way the NFL looks at it, they do, even though they may not admit it, they embrace all of that. So all they care about, whether you're watching it for the purity of the game, as you and I do, or if you're watching it because you got your fantasy football teams, or if you're watching it because you're a gambler, it doesn't matter. All of those put into a pile equates to more ratings and more dollars for the NFL, and that's the way they want it. So they just kind of cater a little bit to everybody, and when it comes down to it, Sunday just captivates the entire nation. That's it.
Absolutely. And think about it, it's 1 day a week, a 3 to 3.5 hour commitment,
yeah.
And everyone's happy to go back to work to school on Monday.
There we go. All right. Well, I'll tell you what, everybody, thanks for watching, and we'll make sure we do a show. What do you think, about a week after the draft when things start to kind of settle in there, Mr. Lardieri?
Yeah, I think we should, because I'm not Mel Kiper or Mike Mayock, so I've got no mock draft board or tell you who the best player available is. I'm better at looking at it after the fact.
All right, perfect, everybody. So remember, it's NFL football talk, and we normally, during the season, we're here every week, but off-season, we just look for a show every now and then. I'm Charles E. Smith, Jr. My co-host is Mr. Chris Lardieri. Remember, NFL Football Talk is an Inside Sports production, and thank you for watching.